I knew there would be a day when I'd be up here, but I guess I hoped my hair would be completely white and not just halfway. On behalf of our whole family, I just want to thank all of you for coming today. And as I look out, what really amazes me is that there are people from every aspect of my mom's life, whether her childhood, her nursing school, her time at San Diego State as a librarian, and obviously her retired life as well. So it's an amazing testament to see all of you here and to bear witness to the impact she had on so many. I do want to thank my brother, Wayne, for putting together the invitations and the program and this amazing slideshow. The other day we went through hundreds of mom's photos trying to figure out which ones we wanted to include. And in that time, I managed to see photographs of every single one of my graduations, whether it was elementary school, high school, college, law school, yet there wasn't a single photo of Wayne's graduations. And so it's making me think that instead of MBA, the only letters that should follow his name are GED. Sorry. When my dad passed away 5 years ago, the mission for Wayne and I, it was pretty simple. Just take care of mom. And since I live about a mile away from my mom, I would typically get the phone calls about changing light bulbs or moving furniture around, picking up toilet paper at Costco. That was a big one. Yet up until the start of this year, mom was remarkably independent. She traveled internationally. She would think nothing of driving up to LA to visit friends or family. And by all accounts, she was enjoying her retired life. So even when she was at home, her phone was constantly ringing. I'd be over there and you wouldn't even be able to talk to her because her phone would always be ringing. She had regular get-togethers with her friends to go out to lunch, play mahjong, go shopping. As some of you know, at the beginning of the year, mom suffered a severe eye injury when she fell down. And so both Wayne and I spent a lot of time, taking her to the emergency room. She had multiple surgeries on that eye. And what seemed like a million follow-up visits with the doctors. And I remember joking with her the second time we spent overnight in the emergency room. I joked with her, I said, "Mom, you're really pushing this mother-son thing." And even though she was completely exhausted, she still had a good laugh. Now, since moving back to San Diego from school, I realized that I spent more time with my mom these past 5 years since my dad passed than at any other point in my adult life. And despite having been retired for many years, she took interest in what was going on at the hotel, even though she really didn't need to. And when the opportunity arose to purchase the land for the hotel, Mom eagerly jumped at the chance to fulfill what had been my dad's quest for more than 20 years. At the beginning of this month, I celebrated a birthday, and Mom placed a note in my birthday card, and I had it framed. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but in it she talked about my having made two rather frantic trips to Hawaii to visit a sick friend who subsequently died of cancer. And in the note she wrote, "Losing such a good friend is very hard." And I suppose what makes my mom's passing that much harder is that I didn't just lose my mom, but Mom was my friend too. So again, I want to thank you all for coming. At this point, there are a handful of people that will be coming up to share their thoughts about Mom. We did have one last-minute addition or omission from the program. My cousin Jeff will also be speaking. And rather than have me keep coming up here to introduce people, I just ask that they introduce themselves when they start their speech. And I also want to point out that at the reception that follows, there will be an opportunity with a microphone for other people to share their thoughts about Mom. Thanks again.
I'm Suga Chen, and Lillian, I actually met her over 50 years ago in Ann Arbor, Michigan, before she married my brother, Jan. Lillian was always very pleasant, mild-mannered, and most considerate to everyone that she knew. And definitely she was a good mother and grandmother and a perfect wife for my brother. Well, to me, she has not she has not passed away, but just taking some time of caring for my brother. And I know that one day, very soon, I will see her again, as happy as ever. But in the meantime, I definitely would miss her. Thank you.
I am Fang Hui Qiu, longtime friend of Yang and Lillian. The last time I had lunch with Lillian was about 4 weeks ago on a Friday. We went to McDonald's because Friday they have cheap deals on fish burgers. Both of us had fish burgers, coffee and tea, and they have this little pastry called whatever, that's for dessert. All these cost about $7. And Lillian was genuinely amused that we have such a good deal. Now I regret that I took her to such a cheap lunch. I promised her next time we'll visit San Diego State because they have completed a new student center. Now that summertime, it's not busy. We say we'll tour the place and have a lunch there. But that now becomes an unfulfilled promise. I feel so bad about it. Since Yang Chen passed away about 5 years ago, I tried to make a point to get together with Lillian once a while. Usually on weekdays for lunch. Modest place, modest lunch, but great time together. Two old friends. Talk about whatever you want. Lillian is, well, it's so enjoyable to engage in a conversation with her. She's intelligent, she's well-read, she's understanding, and she's totally ego-free. It's personally, these are my good happy hours for me for all those years. And I hope it's also to her. I've known her for about 45 years. I am very fortunate that I am a good friend to both Yang and Lillian. We're close friends. I use too close because for all the 45 years, except for a couple of years I moved away from that area, for most of the 45 years, I live either within walking distance or not more than 2 to 3 miles away. I hope I'm not too close for comfort for these two. The Lillian Chen I know, I think she's a perfect daughter because I saw how she took care of her parents in their last days. She is a perfect sister. All her brothers and sisters, most of mine there, but here. She's a perfect wife, perfect mother, perfect grandmother, and ideal friend. I think every stage of her life, she fulfilled it flawlessly. Sometimes I think if a person is too flawless, too perfect, it may be boring. But take a look at the pictures, and take a look at these pictures. She is anything but. She's full of fun and a very graceful person. This situation that she left all of us suddenly really put me in a state of disbelief. It's just not right and not fair. The other day at home, I was staring at a picture of Yang and Lillian. Yang always has his cute smile of satisfaction when Lillian's by his side. And Lillian, the usual mild smile, full of grace. I think if there's a super force that can draw two souls together, I believe they are together now.
Good morning. My name is Maya Hu Chan. I am Lillian's daughter-in-law. I truly believe that I'm the luckiest person in the world to have Mom in my life for the last 22 years. She's not just my mom, she's my friend as well. For those of you who know what I do, I give speeches all the time. And I tried to write this speech 5 times, and I couldn't do it. I was on the plane, coming back, or traveling in Asia last week. Every time I try to write this, it's completely falling apart. And the flight attendant actually came up to me and said, "Are you okay? Was the food really that bad?" So there's so much I want to say about Mom. I want to go back to 22 years ago when I first met her. In 1985, I was a student from Taiwan coming to the US to go to graduate school. I didn't have any family here. Didn't know anybody here in the US. A few years later, I met Wayne, and we got married. My parents at the time was not very thrilled that I decided to stay here, so far away from home. For Chinese parents, the biggest concern they had was that, is her in-laws going to be nice to her? When they came to our wedding, my parents met Mom and Dad, and they were so relieved. Just a few moments. I remember my dad came to me and said, "You'll be fine. This is such a good family." And they were absolutely right. My mom and I are very close. We talk about everything. Remember, every time I come back from a trip, I will be in the car from LAX back to San Diego. I always call her. And she always asks me, she would drop everything and just ask me, how is everything? What did you do? How was your trip? Are you tired? Did you get something to eat? And she's always there for me. Every important event in my life. I remember when I found out I was pregnant. Wayne was out of town at the time, and I had a doctor's appointment. It was an ultrasound appointment, and Mom went with me. And the doctor's office was across the street from a shopping center. It's called UTC in San Diego. So remember that the nurse was looking at the ultrasound screen, and it took so long and she didn't say anything. So I thought, I wonder if something was wrong. Mom and I just kept looking at each other. So finally I said, well, can you tell me what's happening? And then she said, well, I have to go get a doctor. So a few minutes later, the doctor came in and took one look of the screen and said, you're having triplets. She said, 1, 2, 3. You see the 3 little dots? So after the appointment was over, remember Mom and I looked at each other. We were both just stunned, didn't know what to think, what to say. And then we'll never forget, Mom said to me at that moment, she said, do you want to go to Nordstrom? And we did. Boy, retail therapy really worked. We spent the afternoon walking around and spent time together. We didn't say much, but we knew that we'll be okay. Mom has such a great sense of humor. She always makes me laugh. And during the pregnancy, it was pretty rough, and I was ordered for bed rest. And I moved into Mom's house. She took care of me the entire pregnancy. She did everything for me, and she made me feel very much at home. I remember when I delivered the triplets, I had a long labor, and at some point I was left alone in the operating room before the delivery, and I look out. I was all by myself. I look out a door of the operating room. There was this one little window, and that's her face right there. She was just looking at me. I just felt so much better that I would be okay. And she's such an amazing grandmother to the children. Ethan and Savannah have autism, and she found ways to connect with them that nobody else could. She would let Ethan go to her house and water all the plants, and she will be there with him and talk to him. And Savannah loves to make friendship bracelet, and she will go to Michael's and buy all kinds of tools to help her and to deal with her. Of course, she loves Tyler. She's going to talk about it in a minute. And people always see her as someone who's very gracious, very gentle, and very humble. But in the last few months, when she was suffering from her eye injury, I saw a different side of Mom. She was so strong. She was so resilient that I told her over and over again that she's my hero. Mom, you're reunited with Dad now. May you rest in peace, and I love you with all my heart. I just want to say a few words in Chinese for some of our family members，大家好，我是丽仙的媳妇孟君。我谢谢你们来参加妈妈的告别式。我特别要感谢许多远道而来的亲戚、朋友们。妈妈一生对人厚道，她乐于助人，她人缘很好。作为她的媳妇，是我一生的福气，会永远怀念她。谢谢。
Hello, my name is Jeff, and I am one of Lillian's nephews, and just very honored to be here to be able to speak with all our friends and family. Wow, that video just reminded me of all the facial expressions, and you know, she just always had a look for everything, and I just realized, wow, it's really something I'm going to miss. But I just wanted to come out here just to say my appreciation to some of the things that she did for me, and also just to share a few stories. Going to San Diego is always a special event for myself and my family. We loved it here, and we're happy to be back here even right now. Most of it is because of my Aunt Lillian, just the way she made just being down here and being with her such an amazing event. I was actually really lucky because I spent a lot more time with Aunt Lillian than probably some of my other relatives. I went to school at UCSD, and I would visit occasionally, and a lot of the time we spent in the car. As some of you may know, Aunt Lillian didn't have the best sense of direction sometimes, and neither did I. So we would get lost all the time. Sometimes we would have to call my uncle for directions to get to places in downtown that we've both been to numerous times. And as a fallback, I'd have to admit there are a few times we actually had to go back to the hotel first and then go back to her house because that's the only way we knew how to get around. So pretty embarrassing, but some of those times, some of those car trips, we actually had the best times. We were just laughing. I went down a couple one-way streets the wrong way, and she just always had a smile and just this look on her face. I'm not going to try to do it, but she had this surprised but funny look, and we always just had a good laugh about it. And afterwards, everything would be fine. It was also that look that really could cheer anybody up. She could just brighten the day anytime. After I graduated, I would come back to San Diego, and there were some tough times I was going through. I was in between jobs one time, and I came down here just to visit family and just to take some time out. Aunt Lillian took care of me. We spent some time, had some meals, and she went to me and said, well, I wish there was more advice I could give you, but during my whole life, I've only had one job. So even though she wasn't able to give me any job advice, it was just her nurturing and her care, which I was a lucky recipient of. Even my mother and my father, she took my mom across the country out here, took care of her, took care of my family. I'm sure she took care of so many people here, and that's something I just truly appreciate, is just the warmth and the hospitality that she was able to offer so many people here. But not just that, she was also someone who just brought a huge sense of fun and adventure to my life. She introduced me to so many things. She brought me to my first musical at Phantom of the Opera, brought me to different plays. Obviously, she took me to Nordstrom Rack for the first time, and I don't think anybody here has not heard of that place because of her. And Aunt Lillian always had a way to have fun out of any kind of situation. And one thing that always stood out is she always just looked out for other people more than herself. She was always trying to make sure the other person was having a good time, they were cared for. And I realized I never really thought too much about how she was doing. And I realized that some people are just special. They just have that ability in them to just be selfless and look out for other people, and it's something we'll all truly miss. And it's never stopped. Even a few months ago, I still remember her telling Steve to put a jacket on out here, and it's in San Diego, it's never cold enough to put a jacket on. That's the thing that I appreciate the most. It's just showing us that people really can be that good. It really taught me what it's like to be, what family's all about. And those lessons, and even some things that Steve and Wayne have done for their parents, are lessons that still stay with me now. So I just wanted to say thank you to Aunt Lillian just for everything, just for the wonderful memories, for inspiring me, and really making the world a greater place. I just want to end with just a quick message. She does have 6 grandchildren. They're here. I've seen some of them. And I just want to say you have it in you. I see it. You have the same smile as Aunt Lillian. I'll always be able to see that in you. And please just carry on her legacy. Just keep welcoming people out here. Just being gracious hosts. Spreading fun and love. And I'm happy to still come back to San Diego because I know that you'll all be here. And we'll have fun no matter what we're doing, even if we're driving around downtown getting lost. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Margaret Chan. I'm Lillian's granddaughter. I don't know if Nai ever liked chicken noodle soup. I mean, especially the way I liked it. When I say chicken noodle soup, I mean soup that was literally just chicken and noodles and soup. No vegetables, especially. No fancy stuff, just exactly what the name said. I can't even say that her soup was some special recipe or anything. It was just canned broth, leftover chicken, Asian noodles. Pretty plain stuff, easy to throw together on short notice. But I always ate chicken soup like that at my grandmother's house. I don't even think I had to ask for her to make it for me most of the time. It was just always there, made up for us. I don't know if she did anything different to hers to make it less boring. I'm sure she had to have sometimes. How often can you eat the same chicken and noodles and soup all the time? But we ate a lot of chicken noodle soup like that, even when I got older and actually started liking other kinds of food, even when I was too old to just go over to her house and sew dolls and watch cartoons. And no offense, Mom, your chicken soup was an entirely different animal. Carrot, celery, and bow tie noodles, and it just was never the same. I love your soup, Mom, but I was a very picky child. So, anyway, I don't remember the last time I had Nai's chicken noodle soup. Probably before I went off to college, so last year definitely. But I know that on the Thursday night after I was told what had happened, I found myself, the picture of college studentness, eating chicken-flavored cup noodles at my desk in my dorm room and crying, although crying because out there in the world, I knew Nai wasn't there anymore, and I knew chicken noodle soup wasn't going to taste the same to me again. And I think a lot of us here, if not all of us, have something like that from her. I think we all have our own chicken noodle soup, something about our worlds that she changed for the better, that she affected to a degree that it's not going to taste the same again. So I just wanted to say thank you, Nai, for the soup and for everything else. I love you.
Hello, my name is Tyler Chan, and Lillian Chan was my grandmother. But I always called her my Nai. While thinking of what to say for this eulogy, I found it incredibly hard to put into the words the impact that Nai has made in my life. No matter how hard I try, I don't think I can do justice to just how amazing of a person she really was. She was very special. and that one of the most striking things about her is she was so genuinely concerned for others. Anybody who had met her can see that the kindness that she gave off. Whenever I was around her, I felt like the problems of life would just melt away. I think that my favorite thing to do with her was to just sit and talk. Nana was like a blank notebook. You could just talk to her for hours and she would listen. There's nothing I couldn't tell her. She was like my own personal therapist. I also know that she knew how to enjoy life and live it to the fullest. Maybe not with things like skydiving or jet skiing, but with more simple things. I remember once when I was young, maybe 10 or 11, I had a day with her all to myself. We decided to go to lunch. So we went to Fuddruckers and had burgers. After we finished eating, we went outside and a song was playing on the radio. Right then, she decided to teach me how to ballroom dance. So I stood on the tips of my toes and we ballroom danced right outside of Fuddruckers. I'll never forget memories like these. And she was always so busy. I remember a lot of times we couldn't hang out with her because she was at a mahjong game or a party with some friends. We never had to worry about her social life, that's for sure. She taught me so many things. She taught me to be kind, to be gracious to other people's feelings. She taught me how to listen, how to give back instead of take. She even taught me some Chinese, which I may or may not still remember. Of course, nothing can take away the hole in my heart from having her leave us, and I don't think anything ever will. But while this may be a bit cliched, I do truly believe that today we celebrate her life, celebrate the impact that she made in our lives, any lessons that she's taught us, and all the love that she gave. Lastly, I think that I can speak for Saul when I say, thank you for being there, Nai. We will miss you.
So when I was trying to think of what to say, I'm Wayne. I'm the first son. And I did graduate from college, if you were wondering. When I was trying to think of what to say today, it occurred to me that every important moment in my life, Mom has been there by my side. And if I ever had to speak in front of an audience, Mom was usually sitting in the front row with a big smile on her face. And she'd always be looking at me as if she was very proud, whether I deserved it or not. So what I'd like to do today, just for a few minutes, is to share a couple of stories which are the kind of stories I think would bring a smile to my mom's face. Growing up, Steve and I, friends would tell us how lucky we were of the parents that we had, and they were right. We had a perfect childhood. Our parents loved us. There wasn't any drinking, no gambling, no fighting, no cheating, nothing. In fact, it was the most boring childhood you could possibly imagine. But we were very lucky for it. The only time there was any kind of excitement was when Steve or I would cause trouble. And to be honest, I was usually the one to cause the trouble. For example, my parents hardly ever argued. The first time I heard them argue, I think I was like 8 years old, and it seemed so strange. I had never heard them argue before. On the other hand, it was really exciting. And since my dad had given me a tape recorder for my Christmas, I thought, what a perfect opportunity. So later that night, I went up to Mom, and I held up the tape recorder. I said, Mom, listen to this. They were still yelling, but not at each other. They were yelling at me. So over the last few months, I've lost a lot of weight. I know Mom would have a smile on her face because she wanted me to lose the weight. Whenever she would see me, she would say, "You need to lose weight." Whenever she would call me, she would say, "You need to lose weight." Whenever she introduced me to friends, she would say, "This is my son Wayne, and he needs to lose weight." So I finally did. And a couple of months ago, I wanted to show her how good a shape I was in. So I decided to ride my bicycle from my home in Poway to her house in Del Cerro, which is a little over 30 miles. I've always had this theory that sons, all sons, even ones who are 50 years old now, that deep down inside they're still little boys who seek their mom's approval. They do silly things like riding their bikes to their house. They say, "Hi, Ma, look at me. Did I do good?" So that's what I was doing on my bike. But it was a really hard ride, and it was a really hot day. The hills to my mom's house were a lot worse than I thought they'd be. But after 2 grueling hours, I finally made it. But instead of proudly walking through my mom's door and say, "Look, Ma, look what I just did," the only thing I could do was walk into the house and say, "I need water." I laid down on the couch, and she gave me several glasses of water, and she peeled 4 oranges for me just to help me recover. Now, it's bad enough that I nearly passed out trying to ride my bike all the way to my mom's house. What was worse was that she was there to see it. So for the next few months, every time I talked to her on the phone, I said, "Mom, I'm coming over." She would say, "You're not going to ride your bike again." But you see, my mom was a worrier. She worried about both of us. And that was her job. And while she loved my brother and I equally, she worried about me more. Maybe it was because I was her firstborn son. Maybe because I would do idiotic things like try to ride my bike from my house to hers. I don't know. I remember telling her once, I said, "Mom, you don't have to worry about me anymore. You don't have to tell me what you think I should be doing in my life. I'm a grown man. Besides, I have Maya to do that from now on." Which brings me to another story. A couple of years ago, I decided to take Maya and the kids up to LA for a few days off. And it turns out about that same time, Steve and his family, they drove to San Francisco for a few days vacation. And after the vacation, we were both headed back home right about the same time. And we were in LA at about the same time driving home. And it was rush hour. There were a lot of cars, and I think it might have been raining. So right about that time, while I'm driving, I got a call from Mom. She says, "Wayne, are you in LA?" I said, "Yes, Mom." She says, "There's so much traffic, I'm worried about you. Please drive carefully." I said, "I will, Mom. Just be careful. I'm worried about you." Steve, who was also in LA driving home, and she says, "Steve, are you driving in LA?" And he says, "Yes, Mom." And she says, "I'm very worried about Wayne." So we both got home safely, and sometime after that, Steve asked my mom, he said, "Mom, we were both in traffic. I was driving a lot farther than Wayne was. Why weren't you worried about me?" And she said, "Well, I knew you would make it home safe." And with that one sentence, Mom managed to insult both of us, but for very different reasons. So I see a few smiles out there. So, Mom, wherever you are up there, I hope I did good. Thank you for everything. I love you, and I'll miss you. I think that's